Hello everyone, my name is Dr. Robert Ellis. For more than 40 years wearing this white coat, I have had the honor of walking alongside many patients through every chapter of their lives, from the vibrant years of youth to the peaceful twilight of old age. Over time and through countless experiences, there is one truth I have come to understand very clearly. The older we get, the more we seek tranquility over noise, stillness over crowds. And if lately you have found yourself pulling away from gatherings, preferring the quiet comfort of your own company, I want you to know this: it is not a sign of sadness or isolation. It is a sign of growth, a silent but powerful growth, the kind that only a soul who has weathered life's many storms can truly understand. Today, I would like to walk with you through 6 deep and meaningful reasons why, as we move into the later seasons of life, we naturally begin to seek this sacred solitude, not as an act of retreat, but as an act of returning home to ourselves. As we step gently into this conversation, I would like to invite you to pause for a moment and reflect. Not with urgency, but with the quiet patience that comes only with lived experience. You see, there is a tender truth that often emerges as the years unfold. The realization that our emotional energy is no longer something to be spent recklessly, but something to be protected, cherished, and offered with intention. When we were younger, it seemed natural to pour ourselves into every gathering, every conversation, every relationship, as if we had an endless reservoir of attention, empathy, and spirit to give. We stayed longer at gatherings than we wished to. We listened to stories that left us feeling more tired than nourished, and we offered pieces of ourselves to others, even when we received little in return. But with time, and with a heart shaped by both joy and disappointment, we begin to understand that emotional energy is not unlike a candle burning steadily in the quiet hours of the night. Its light must be preserved, lest it flicker and fade before its time. Each conversation, each encounter, each new commitment becomes a choice, a quiet weighing of cost and meaning. We realize that not every smile is sincere, not every invitation carries warmth, and not every exchange leaves us whole. And so, little by little, we begin to guard our inner resources more carefully, not out of bitterness, but out of reverence for the life we have left to live, and the peace we have fought so hard to find. It is not that we stop caring for others, no, quite the opposite. We care even more deeply, but we do so selectively. We offer the richness of our presence to those who truly see us, to those who nourish our spirit rather than drain it. We recognize that our time is no longer something to be squandered, but something sacred, something precious. We no longer feel the need to explain why certain gatherings leave us weary, or why we might choose a quiet afternoon alone over a noisy evening spent filling space with words. This, dear friends, brings us to the first profound reason why, as we age, we find ourselves stepping back from the noise of the world. Because our emotional energy, that most vital, invisible currency, has become too precious to spend on anything that does not return to us a sense of warmth, of meaning, of peace. And in choosing where and how we invest that energy, we are not withdrawing from life. We are honoring it more deeply than ever before. As we continue walking this path together, I would like to lead you into the second, quiet but profound shift that occurs with the passing of time: the outgrowing of old roles and expectations. There comes a moment, often so quietly that we hardly notice it at first, when the roles we once wore so naturally begin to feel heavy upon our shoulders. Perhaps you were always the one others leaned on, the one who soothed tensions, who held the family together, who listened without ever asking for anything in return. Perhaps you were the problem solver, the bridge builder, the one who always said yes even when your heart was quietly pleading for rest. In those earlier chapters of life, carrying these roles may have felt like love, like purpose, like duty fulfilled. But as the years weave their quiet lessons into the fabric of your soul, you begin to sense a subtle ache, a weariness not of the body alone but of the spirit. What once felt like devotion now feels like a burden. What once brought a sense of belonging now leaves you feeling unseen, unheard, and unrecognized for who you are today. And so, without fanfare or grand announcement, you begin to step away, not out of anger, not out of rebellion, but out of a quiet, resolute knowing that you have changed, and that the old expectations no longer fit the person you have become. It can be painful at first. The people around you, those who have known you for decades, may not immediately see or understand the changes within you. They may continue speaking to an earlier version of you, calling upon the caretaker, the fixer, the ever-available friend or parent. And when you begin to say no, to withdraw gently from the roles that once define you, some may respond with confusion, with disappointment, even with hurt. But deep down, you know you are not abandoning them. You are simply refusing to abandon yourself any longer. I once cared for a woman named Marlene, a remarkable spirit in her late 70s. For most of her life, she was the pillar everyone leaned on, the one who held holiday dinners, who kept the family stories alive, who offered comfort without ever asking for her own needs to be met. But after a serious health scare, something within her shifted. She realized that life was too short to continue pouring herself into expectations that no longer fit the woman she had become. Quietly, gracefully, she stepped back. She stopped hosting the gatherings. She stopped apologizing for needing time to herself. And though at first her family struggled to understand, over time they came to see the quiet strength in her choice. The deep, unwavering love she now extended, first and foremost, to herself. And so, dear friends, if you find yourself longing for quieter days, for smaller circles, for conversations that no longer demand you to wear an old worn mask, know this: you are not selfish, you are sacred. You are honoring the profound truth that life, especially in its later chapters, is too precious to be lived as a performance. You deserve relationships that meet you as you are today, not as you once were. And if that means letting go of roles that once defined you, then so be it. It is not a loss, it is a liberation, a courageous act of returning home to yourself. And now let us turn gently to the third quiet revelation that often accompanies us as we age, the profound nourishment we find in silence, and the growing weariness we feel towards small talk. There was a time, perhaps many years ago, when filling the air with conversation seemed natural, even necessary, when moments of silence felt awkward, as if something precious was being lost if words were not constantly flowing. We accepted invitations out of habit, answered phone calls because it seemed the polite thing to do, and stayed in conversations that skimmed the surface of life without ever touching its depths. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something changes. Silence, once feared, becomes sacred. It is no longer a void to be filled, but a space to be honored. It becomes the soft ground upon which your thoughts can gently land, the clear mirror in which your spirit can truly see itself. Where once you might have spoken for the sake of speaking, now you find that stillness speaks volumes. It fills you in ways that idle chatter never could. Small talk, once harmless, even comforting, begins to feel thin, like a fragile layer stretched over something hollow. Conversations about the weather, the latest gossip, the endless cycles of complaint, they leave you tired, not refreshed. They ask you to step outside of yourself, to perform a version of engagement that no longer feels authentic. And after such conversations, you find yourself longing not for more connection, but for restoration. I remember an old friend of mine, Albert, who in his early 80s made a decision that at first puzzled those around him. For decades, he had attended a weekly coffee gathering with old acquaintances, where the conversations circled endlessly around the same familiar topics: the trivial frustrations of daily life, the shallow retelling of old stories, the cautious avoidance of anything too real. One day, Albert simply stopped going. Instead, he began spending his mornings walking along the lake, feeling the wind against his face, watching the sunlight dance on the water. He told me once over tea, "I realized I wasn't lonely when I was alone. I was lonely when I was sitting at that table, pretending those conversations meant something they didn't." And so it is. Silence, once misunderstood, becomes a true companion, a presence, not an absence. In its embrace, we are free. Free to feel our own feelings without interruption. Free to think our own thoughts without needing to frame them for others' understanding. We discover that we are never truly alone when we are at peace within ourselves. If you have noticed that you no longer feel drawn to gatherings where words scatter without meaning, if you find yourself choosing a quiet evening at home over another round of polite conversation, know this: you are not withdrawing from life. You are drawing closer to its essence. You are choosing conversations that nourish rather than exhaust, and when such conversations cannot be found, you are wise enough to seek the gentle company of your own heart instead. In this there is no sadness, only the truth, only a deeper kind of presence, one that no longer needs to shout or fill the air to know that it is fully, wonderfully alive. Let us now arrive at the fourth quiet but powerful transformation that often accompanies the wisdom of aging: the sharpened ability to see through people, to gently but unmistakably recognize when something or someone is not quite what they appear to be. This is not about paranoia. It is not about mistrust for the sake of mistrust. No, this clarity comes from years of listening, observing, and learning, not through books, but through experience. Through the countless conversations you have endured, the gestures you have witnessed, and the patterns that have repeated themselves enough times for your spirit to finally say, "I've seen this before." And once you have seen, truly seen, it becomes nearly impossible to unsee. When we are younger, we often give others the benefit of the doubt, sometimes too willingly. We excuse subtle slights, we overlook inconsistencies, we convince ourselves that maybe we misunderstood because we want to believe in people and we want to be kind. But kindness, when misapplied, can become self-abandonment. And in time the heart learns, not every smile is genuine, not every warm word is rooted in goodwill, and not every act of closeness is free from expectation. As we grow older, our intuition, that once quiet whisper, becomes clearer, louder, more direct. You start to feel it in your chest, in your breath, even before your mind has named it. You sense when a conversation is not truly about connection but about control. You feel when a compliment is laced with manipulation. You know when someone is drawing near not to offer warmth, but to take something, your time, your attention, your energy, without giving anything meaningful in return. I recall an older patient, Elaine, who told me once with a soft, knowing smile, "In my younger years, I stayed in too many rooms too long because I didn't want to seem rude. But these days, if the air doesn't feel right, I simply leave. No explanation, no apology." She wasn't bitter. In fact, she was more peaceful than I had ever seen her. What she had found wasn't defensiveness. It was discernment, the quiet mastery of knowing who lifts your spirit and who only clouds it. And so you begin to protect your peace not with confrontation, but with absence. You walk away before entanglement begins. You set boundaries without needing to raise your voice. You do not waste time proving yourself or persuading someone to mean well, because at this stage in life, time and peace are your truest possessions, and they are not given lightly. If you have found yourself distancing from certain people, even without dramatic partings or declared reasons, trust that instinct. You are not being cold, you are being clear. You have spent enough time learning what it feels like to be drained, to be used, to be disappointed, and you have decided gently but firmly that you will not relive those lessons again. Not because you are afraid, but because you are finally free. This freedom, to trust your inner compass and honor its quiet warnings, is one of the greatest gifts of aging. And once you have learned to listen to it, you will no longer waste precious hours walking in circles with people who never truly saw you. You will walk forward, calmly, quietly, with grace. And in doing so, you will reclaim a life that belongs fully to you. And now we come to the fifth, perhaps most tender truth that quietly shapes the way we move through the world as we grow older: the lingering echoes of past betrayals. You see, not all the distance we create between ourselves and others comes from the present moment. Much of it, often the heaviest part, has roots stretching back through the corridors of our lives, woven from memories we thought we had long since laid to rest. We may have forgiven, yes, we may have smiled and moved forward, but the body remembers, the heart remembers. There were friends who promised to stand by you and disappeared at your lowest hour. There were loved ones who spoke words that wounded deeper than any silence could. There were betrayals that came not as sharp, sudden blows, but as slow erosions. The quiet realization that someone you trusted did not hold your heart as carefully as you once believed. And though you have gathered yourself, pieced yourself back together, and continued on with grace, these experiences leave a subtle but enduring mark. They do not make you bitter. They make you careful, not cold but cautious, not closed but discerning. I once sat with a man named Charles, 84 years old, whose voice still carried a kind strength when he spoke of the life he had built. He told me, without anger or regret, that he no longer waited for people to prove their loyalty with empty words. "I don't test people anymore," he said. "I don't set myself up for disappointment. I cherish those who show up without being asked, and I let the rest go without a fuss." It is not that you expect the worst of people now. It is simply that you no longer expect too much. You no longer build castles of hope on shaky ground. You have learned, often painfully, that trust is not something given lightly, but something earned, steadily, consistently, through actions far more than promises. And so when you feel yourself hesitating to open certain doors, when you find yourself declining invitations you would have once accepted, understand this: you are not withdrawing from life. You are honoring what life has taught you. You are protecting the heart that has endured so much, that still beats with a quiet, steadfast courage. Some may not understand. They may say you are distant, or changed, or harder to reach. They may wonder why you no longer throw yourself into every relationship, every reunion, every fleeting connection. But they do not see the pages of history you carry within you. They do not know the nights you waited for a call that never came, the silent absences that spoke louder than any betrayal. You are not cold. You are not broken. You are awake. And in this wakefulness, you have chosen to reserve your most tender self for the people, however few, who have proven that they will honor it. At this stage of life, consistency matters more than charisma, presence matters more than promises, and peace, your hard-earned, dearly guarded peace, matters more than anything else. And now, as we draw nearer to the heart of this conversation, we arrive at perhaps the most beautiful realization of all: the quiet fulfillment found in your own company. When we are young, solitude can feel like a punishment, an empty space we rush to fill with noise, with plans, with people. Being alone can stir restlessness, even fear, as if life is somehow slipping past us if we are not constantly surrounded by movement and sound. But over the years, something remarkable begins to unfold. Slowly, steadily, you come to understand that true presence has nothing to do with how many voices fill the room, and everything to do with the peace that fills your soul. Solitude, once feared, becomes sacred. It is no longer a lack. It is a richness all its own. You begin to find joy in the simple, unhurried rhythms of your own life. A morning spent watching the sunlight stretch across the floor. An afternoon curled up with a book whose pages whisper only to you. An evening spent walking slowly through the neighborhood, with no destination but the present moment itself. In these quiet hours, you rediscover yourself. Not the roles you once played for others, not the expectations you once tried to meet, but the pure, unadorned self that has always been waiting beneath it all. I think of Frances, an 80-year-old woman whose gentle wisdom left a deep impression on me. She told me that in her younger years, weekends without plans would fill her with anxiety, as if an empty calendar meant an empty life. But now she treasures those same weekends like a garden she tends just for herself. She reads, she writes letters she never needs to send, she sips her tea slowly by the window as the seasons change outside. I realized, she said with a soft smile, that I didn't need company to feel complete. I just needed permission to be at home within myself. And so it is with many who reach this deeper stage of living. You are no longer afraid of your own thoughts. You are no longer running from your own stillness. You have made peace with the quiet, and in doing so, You have made peace with life itself. Others may not always understand. They may wonder why you are less eager to fill every hour with plans, why you seem perfectly content with the simple pleasures that once went unnoticed. But you do not owe an explanation. Your life is not emptier for the quiet you have chosen. It is fuller. Fuller of authenticity, of rest, of grace. There is a freedom that comes with being at ease in your own presence, a freedom that no one can grant you and no one can take away. It is the freedom of no longer performing for the world, of no longer seeking validation outside yourself, of no longer believing that worth must be proven through busyness or social calendars. You live each day according to your own rhythm now, not according to the rush of others' expectations. You wake when your body calls you. You eat when your hunger stirs. You rest when your spirit asks for stillness. You are no longer measured by how many people call your name. You are measured only by the quiet contentment you feel when the world falls silent, and you find that you, alone, are enough. And in this, dear friends, you have not lost anything. You have gained everything. And now, as we bring this journey to a close, I want to leave you with one simple, enduring truth. Choosing solitude, choosing discernment, choosing peace over noise, these are not signs of brokenness. They are signs of awakening. Every shift we have spoken about today, the guarding of your emotional energy, the shedding of old roles, the cherishing of silence, the sharpening of your intuition, the quiet echoes of past betrayals, and the deep fulfillment you find in your own presence. Each of these is not a withdrawal from life, but a deeper step into it, a step into the truest version of yourself, the one that no longer needs to strive or explain, but simply needs to be. You have not given up on people. You have not grown cold. You have simply learned, through joy, through sorrow, through countless lived moments, that your life is a sacred space, and not everyone is meant to walk every mile of it with you. Some were meant to accompany you for a season, some were meant to teach you through their presence, and some through their absence. And all of it, the love, the disappointment, the letting go, has shaped the soul you are today. You owe no explanations for the boundaries you set, no apologies for the quiet you choose, no justifications for the peace you protect. Those who are meant to walk alongside you now will understand without being told. They will meet you where you are, not where you once were, and not where they wish you would stay. And for those who cannot understand your need for simplicity, for stillness, for authenticity, bless them, release them, and continue on your way with grace. This life, especially in its later chapters, is too precious to be spent performing, pretending, or pleasing. It is a time to return to yourself, wholly, unapologetically, tenderly. So if your world has grown smaller, if your conversations have grown quieter, if your days have slowed and deepened and stretched into soft hours of solitude, know this: you are not fading, you are flourishing. You are not disappearing, you are finally, beautifully arriving. And that, dear friends, is a journey worth honoring. Thank you for walking this path with me today. It has been an honor to share this space with you. Until we meet again, may you walk gently, live deeply, and guard your peace like the treasure it truly is.